Albert Einstein once said compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And what's so special about it though? Well, it's how the rich keeps getting richer. You look at Jeff Bezos, just a few weeks ago, he made $13 billion in one day. And it's precisely because of compound interest that he was able to do that. But it's not just limited to ultra elite billionaires. 80% of millionaires are self-made. Okay, so how does it work? Well, let me explain it to you. Imagine you have $1,000. You invest that, you get a 10% return, right? So now you have $1,100. You invest that again, you make 10% on top of that, and now you make $110 profit. See, the first year you made $100, second year you made $110 because you're making interest on top of interest. And so you keep on doing this over and over again. Every year you're making more and more interest every single year. And you add all that up and it just grows out of control exponentially. So one thing you want to learn how to use if you want to be financially literate is a compound interest calculator. This can help you really visualize the power of compound interest and how it lets money just blow out of control. So let's go on over to the internet and let's search for compound interest calculator. Okay, let's click on the first one, investor.gov, and let's start typing in some numbers. Okay, so let's say you have an initial investment of $1,000. Let's say you make a monthly contribution of $200. That's reasonable, right? Let's say you're starting this pretty early. Let's say you're starting this at 22, and let's say you're gonna do this like forever, pretty much, like until you retire, say like at the age of like 65. So 43 years. Interest rate, what are we gonna put for interest rate? The stock market has returned on average 9.6%, like historically. So that's what we're gonna put, 9.6%. Now that doesn't account for inflation, okay? So this is just what the number is that you'll see in your investment account. But 43 years from now, everything's going to be more expensive. So the money's not going to be worth quite as much, but nonetheless, this is worth checking out. So let's do a calculate. So in 43 years, you'll have $1 million, $1.3 million. Okay. And this is pretty much like anyone can do this, right? Anyone can invest $200 a month. Anyone with a job can invest $200 a month. Now, there are some people who their investments might be negative, like they're going into debt every month because they're in a precarious situation, and that's unfortunate. But if you can find a way to get out of that so you can actually have some positive cash flow to invest, it'll really help. Now let's play around with some numbers again. Let's say you actually want to start, let's say you actually end up starting investing later, or let's say you end up retiring earlier. So let's say you only have 30 years of investing. Right? So how does that affect it? So you go from 1.3 million to only 381,000. Okay. So it just really goes to show that time in the market matters a lot. That is a huge impact on it. So you want to start investing as soon as you can. And now let's say you end up maybe going to college, getting a good job. You're able to save more than $200 a month. Let's say you're able to save $1,000 a month. Okay. Calculate that. That is 1.8 million. Now, this thing has like a glitch. Just ignore everything after the 30-year mark. But basically, if you can see here, at the 30-year mark, your investment is $1.8 million, even though you only put in $360,000. So that just goes to show that it just goes to show how much your money can blow out of control. Let's say if you put this back to the original 43 years, that turns into $6 million. $6 million when you only invested $500,000. Like, do you realize how insane that is? Now, here's another neat little trick. Okay, it's a way for you to calculate compound interest in your head on the fly. It's called the rule of 72. Okay, the way you use it is you say 72 divided by the interest rate, and that's how many years it takes for your money to double. So let's say you're investing in the stock market, you're expecting about 10% returns a year. Okay, you take 72 divided by 10, that equals 7. So it'll take about 7 years for your money to double. Okay, now, so let's say you want to know how much money will you have in, say, 35 years. Okay, how much money will you have in 35 years and you invested in the stock market, you're getting 10% return every year, okay? So how many years does it take for it to double? 72 divided by 10 is 7, okay? You wanna know how much money you'll have after 35 years. Well, it's gonna double every 7 years. 35 divided by 7 is 5. That means there's 5 doubling periods. 2 to the power of 5 is 16. That means your money is going to 16 times itself. Okay, you invest $100,000, it's good. Then 35 years later, it'll be 100,000 times 16. Okay, so 1.6 million. So let's talk about class mobility. Class mobility is the idea that you start off as a poor person or lower middle class and you rise up into the solid middle class. And then you go to the upper middle class and then to wealth, to be rich. And there's different levels of rich. Okay, so that's class mobility, and compound interest is the vehicle. That's what gets you there. Okay, like on the one hand, you can say, okay, you go to college, you get a good job, that puts you into a different class, but that can only take you so far, right? You gotta have your money working for you. And compound interest is how your money grows out of control. That's what you want, okay? And anyone can do that. You just have to know how to invest your money. And compound interest doesn't just apply to investments, it also applies to loans. So if you have a car loan, a mortgage, a credit card, that interest is stacking up on top of each other time and time again. So if you're the bank, hell yeah, you love the compound interest. But if you're in debt, you don't love that. So that's why a lot of times it may be good to get out of debt as soon as you can. But there are good forms of debt, but that'll be for another video. So the power of compound interest doesn't just apply to financial capital, it also applies to your human capital. Okay, we're talking about your education, your training, your loyalty, your relationships, your physical fitness, mental health. All this stuff, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, way bigger over time when you keep investing in yourself. Okay, so if you're trying to get better at playing basketball or playing guitar or being a better painter, every single day that you invest in yourself, you're getting that much bigger. It gets to a point where in the beginning you're getting, okay, just a tiny bit better. But as time goes on, you're getting like crazy, way better, like not even close to where you were before. And you look back on where you were before and you're like, whoa, like that was nothing. Now you're on top of Mount Everest. So I hope you guys can understand why 80% of millionaires are self-made, because anyone can do it. And why don't you guys like, comment, subscribe this video? It'll help out the channel.